This is the brand new Pinarello Dogma FS, which was launched earlier this year and had its first debut race in the early season classics not so long ago. This bike in particular was the best placed Team Sky, or should I say Team Ineos rider, Dylan van Baarle, and he came in 21st place. As you can see, this has come to us not so fresh, and it has actually ridden the 257k cobbled classic. And despite our mechanic really trying to get their hands on it to clean it, we've been asked kindly not to do so. It even has Dylan's race number and race notes along the top tube, which denote all the cobble sections during the race. Interestingly, this bike weighs 8.5 kilograms on the Cycling Weekly scales, and some interesting facts on Dylan's ride in particular. He rides 42 centimetre handlebars, a whopping 14 centimetre stem, and sits on the perch of his saddle, which is around 81 centimetres, which is of course very unique to him and his personal preference in rider position. Typically with the cobble classics, there's some tech around the bike that makes the rider sort of be more comfortable and make sure the mechanics of it still works throughout the race. So in particular here, Dylan uses a whopping 54-2 front chainring with a even bigger 44 inner chainring to make sure if he is riding on the inner chainring on the cobbled sections, the chain doesn't drop off. And to make sure it doesn't fall between the frame and the chain set, there is a little bit of 3D printed stuff on the frame to make sure if he did have a mechanical, it isn't lost completely. At the rear, he has an 1125 cassette, and in today's terms, that is fairly small. But considering the Paris-Roubaix is relatively flat and they don't exactly climb any meters at all, you don't need a big range at the back. This is a very exciting bike because it has the brand new self-adjusting DSAS system from Pinarello. It effectively is an electro-hydraulic suspension system at the front and at the rear. This means that the rider has an adaptable system depending on the terrain or type of terrain they're riding on, whether that's bumpy or smooth. Of course, the Paris-Roubaix essentially is a load of cobbled sections with a load of smooth roads in between. So Dylan van Baarle doesn't have to think about his bike adapting to the situation because it can be automatically locked and unlocked as he rides. At the front, you get a metal coil spring underneath the headset just above the fork. This is bike and rider suspended, meaning when the rider goes over the cobbles and all that energy is being pushed through the bike, it doesn't need to move around the obstacles. It should be able to absorb and bounce over it effectively, meaning that you shouldn't be as fatigued after all the rough terrain. So ultimately, the Pinarello FS should be a faster prospect than the other suspension systems on the market. As you can imagine, the head tube has had to be bolstered and tweaked a little bit to support 20 millimeters worth of travel you get at the front of the FS. The fork has changed slightly too, with a reduced rake, which is all about handling and improving that stability over the rough terrain. At the rear of the Pinarello FS, you get what Pinarello call flex stays, which basically is a change in the carbon layout of the chainstay and the seat stay to allow for up to 10 millimeters of vertical compliance when added with that rear suspension system at the back. The entire suspension system is battery operated, but that is different to the one used for the gearing. It has gyroscopes and accelerometers to decide how much travel and suspension is used front and rear. The cool thing here is that the system can either be fully automatic or manually operated. So during the race, Dylan can choose different preferences on how much suspension he actually gets from the system. The difference compared to Pinarello's siblings like the F10 or the latest race bike, the F12, ends there. So you're likely to see aero trinkets on this bike as you do with the other bikes as well. So the down tube has the flat back technology to make it aerodynamic, and the forks have aero trinkets, especially the fork flaps at the end of the fork dropouts. You also get the Toreca T1100 high modulus carbon fiber, which is very stiff and lightweight. So there you have it, Dylan van Baarle's 2019 Pinarello FS with a bit of Belgium and French toothpaste to boot. If you've liked this video, please do like and subscribe to the Cycling Weekly YouTube channel and give us your thoughts on Dylan's bike, which I think is rather dashing. But until then, we'll see you next time.